Hello and welcome back to the Debrief here on the Blood Red channel. I'm your host, Edward Kay. Matt Addison's joining me, and Jurgen Klopp's historically got a pretty good record at Selhurst Park. There have been some memorable wins there over the years. It certainly was not one of those. It wasn't a classic tonight, 0-0. And Matt, that was just sort of typical Liverpool this season, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the only positive really is they didn't lose. They very nearly did. We've just been speaking off air then about the two things that happened in the game, really, the crossbar and then obviously Mohamed Salah does the same the other side of half time. But other than that, just nothing really to report upon, nothing really to talk about. It just didn't feel like a game where Liverpool were going to go on and win. There was that 5 minutes really after half time when Harvey Elliott improved things, and after that, really, it just kind of tailed off, and it was just a 5-minute spell that you thought maybe something could happen, but it was just, they were a little bit quicker. They showed a little bit more incision, but just nothing that seemed to be sustainable, really. It just didn't last, which is a shame, really, because I just think Palace are there for the taking. They're not a particularly good side. They don't score many goals. They don't really create too many chances. The chances that they did create, Liverpool tended to just give them on a plate, really. You think of Trent in the first half, Matip as well, with some dreadful distribution. It just didn't look right, did it? The midfield, I'm sure we'll come on to, didn't particularly perform well, didn't look like it had much creativity or legs or defensive nous or anything really in there. It's just more of the same, isn't it, really? It's incredibly frustrating. Like I say, Crystal Palace, really a no threat. That I think quietly a team that could end up getting dragged really into a relegation battle. They just don't score goals, and they tend to concede quite a few, but unfortunately not against this Liverpool team. It just never looked like it.
Yeah, and it was. I found myself saying after 20 minutes, saying to myself, it'd been a pretty slow start to the game, and then it was a pretty slow middle, and then a pretty slow end as well, really, from Liverpool. I mean, I suppose you could expect a bit of cautiousness from the team following, a hammering like we got from Madrid, but maybe it went a bit beyond just cautiousness from that. Do you think there was a bit of a hangover from that game, and do you think it has sort of halted Liverpool's momentum a bit, like we were fearing it might?
I don't know whether it's a hangover from Tuesday, just because they've kind of been like this all season, haven't they? It's not a massive shock. I think we have seen them a little bit turn the corner to some extent against Newcastle, and obviously against Everton as well before that. But I don't know. I don't really think I'm that surprised by it. I think when you see the team and you see the midfield and you kind of see that Diogo Jota, I looked it up before, 321 days since Diogo Jota last scored a goal. Cody Gakpo still getting used to the sort of central role, and I thought did okay in a couple of little moments, particularly in that first half. He tended to get the ball and be able to spin and turn, and you can kind of see long term that might pay off for Liverpool, but long term isn't going to help them at the moment. It's just too many things that you kind of think, well, there's maybe a little bit of potential there, or there might be something they can do there. When you think of the midfield, you're just looking ahead to the summer now and hoping that they can change basically all three of those positions. I think even someone like Thiago, who's out at the moment, I don't think is a long-term option because of his injury history and his age. It's got to the point where you're just not really surprised that the defensive errors that we spoke about are no real shock. The kind of almost laziness at certain times. I think the body language was a little bit strange at times. I thought, with the camera on the television coverage panned to Trent Alexander-Arnold after about 10 seconds, and he just looked absolutely furious. And you didn't ever look at them and think that they were going to get into a bit of a groove. It just looked a little bit strange, I think, at certain times. And yeah, just all across the pitch, really, they're just not themselves, are they, at the moment? We thought they turned a little bit of a corner. Maybe this is another step back, but I don't know, the games just keep on coming, and you think, well, if they can't score a goal against Crystal Palace, I think Wolves will be a bigger test. I know that's at Anfield, but they've already caused Liverpool a number of problems. And then Manchester United, you think if that right-hand side is as weak as what it has looked recently with Matip and Trent over there, obviously maybe Canate could be back by that point. But, you just look at that right-hand side, if you're Marcus Rashford or even someone like Pedro Neto, I think played for Wolves as under 21s, maybe if he could come back in for midweek, if pretty much any player that's got a little bit of quality in the final third at the moment is just going to capitalise, because Vinicius Junior did it on Tuesday night, and Liverpool played quite well in that match. In the games where they're playing not so well, it's just going to be even more exposed, and that's the worry really for Liverpool, is that the body language, particularly Trent, for me was just really off today, and it just never looked like they were going to turn that around, unfortunately. So yeah, it's just another frustrating one, but you kind of went into it thinking maybe they can just put together a little bit of a Premier League run, hopefully put the Real Madrid thing behind them, and ultimately it was just 90 minutes of nothingness really, which is it's just not what we wanted to see.
Yeah, Trent showing his frustration through his body language, and he was showing his frustration towards Jordan Henderson at one point. I mean, this was probably about the most interesting thing that happened in the game from a Liverpool perspective. It's what me and my friends were talking about. Do you reckon that was going in, Matt? Because I'm 95% sure it was going in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That kind of summed it up, didn't it, really? I mean, the one good bit of defensive play came from Jordan Henderson to stop his own teammate scoring, which is just, yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, we've seen them do that free kick so many times. The one time it actually works, it's stopped by his own teammate. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that would have gone in. And look, maybe that would have been the difference. Maybe that's what it needed. Liverpool just needed to get a bit of luck, get themselves one goal in front, and maybe the nothingness then happens. But you've got the one goal and you take the 3 points, and we're sat here having a conversation about nothing much happened and it was boring and it was what Liverpool needed and they kept a clean sheet, and suddenly you can start to take a few positives out of it. But yeah, it's just typical of the night, really. There was, a couple of moments that the Salah one that hit the bar, I think he's a little bit unlucky, but there's just not enough of those moments. We know that Liverpool are, they're going to miss chances. They're going to not score every single time they attack. But when you can sort of boil the game down to, well, one shot was blocked and one hit the bar, that was about it. Against a team like Crystal Palace, okay, yes, it was a little bit unlucky that Jordan Henderson stopped that ball. Okay, maybe he didn't quite read the free kick in the way he should have done and should have got out of the way quicker. And, you can kind of point the blame there at certain points, but ultimately they should be creating more chances than it's kind of, well, one free kick and one kind of half chance that hits the crossbar. I think you can't really complain at 0-0 when you've created two things in the entirety of the 90 minutes. It's just, one of those nights, really. And, it's frustrating because there's no real. I know Darwin Núñez wasn't there, and obviously he was a miss, but there's no real solution. I don't think. I think the midfield is what it comes back to, and as we've said so many times, there's a couple of changes who've gone in there tonight and kind of made things worse. Stefan Bajcetic can't play every single match, but ultimately, until you sort that out, you're not going to sort the rest of it out. And obviously, we know that can't come until the summer. So I think there are going to be more frustrations like this. I think there's going to be more matches where Liverpool put in performances like this. And I think against better teams than Crystal Palace, they will get beat in those games, which is what makes the top four race still a little bit of a stretch, even if they are slightly closer to it than what they were a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, as you say, it was typical. It was the same old story of that shaky midfield and an unconvincing defence, but it's a defence that, surprisingly enough, has actually got 3 Premier League clean sheets on the bounce now. And I suppose that's one positive you can take from this evening, that despite taking 5 goals past them in the midweek, they have managed to bag yet another clean sheet in the Premier League.
Yeah, I wouldn't be giving them too much credit for that, I don't think. I think against Everton, they never looked like scoring. Everton, played the lad up front whose name escapes me, who's, generally just not quite Premier League level, without being too harsh to him. I think there's a reason he was out on loan. They've desperately brought him back and didn't really have too many other goals around the team. Obviously, Newcastle was a little bit of a different story, but even then, they played with 10 men for 70 minutes. And then tonight, Crystal Palace, we've said it a couple of times, they don't really score goals. They didn't really look like a huge threat. It was it was just one of those, really, where I think they've had three teams and 3 sets of circumstances where it would be a disappointment to have anything other than 3 clean sheets. I think from those matches, just given the way that the games played out, it was it was one of those, really. I just think you can kind of try and cling to a couple of positives, but I'm not necessarily sure that the players will be celebrating too hard the fact that they've not conceded. I think it should really be a given in that kind of match.
Yeah, we try and cling to the positives while we can, but I think one of the most frustrating things on the night, for me at least, Naby Keita's performance. I mean, he's never really covered himself in glory in a Liverpool shirt when he's managed to actually be fit and play. But I think we all saw that Harvey Elliott substitution coming, because he was just an absolute liability after he got that yellow card, and it's just so frustrating, because it's a night where there's a real chance for him to step up. Bajcetic and Fabinho looked tired; they needed a break. It was a chance for him to come in and really show what he can do in what will be, his last number of games in a Liverpool shirt. But, I mean, maybe we shouldn't really expect that from him based on all the evidence we've got of his Liverpool career so far. But, yeah, just a really frustrating performance from him, wasn't it?
Yeah, he didn't do anything good, did he? His contributions were all negative. I think he gave away 5 or 6 fouls. I think he touched the ball about 7 times. So the balance of those two things is just unacceptable, isn't it? He didn't really do anything. I'm reluctant to go in too hard on him because he wasn't the only one. I think that the body language again with him wasn't particularly brilliant. There was a couple of players there that just didn't really do anything. The things that they did do were kind of taken away from the performance, putting the ball out of play, giving the ball away too easily in stupid areas. And Keita, unfortunately, did all of those things. But like you say, the body of evidence is there now. I think, the second half of last season, he had 6 months where he was really good and he was consistent. And even then, he wasn't in the team when everyone was fit. He wasn't, first choice. I just think we've got sort of, 80% of his Liverpool career has been like this. He's either been injured, or when he's been given opportunities, he's not really been able to get the ball and kind of progress things in the way that we thought. But he's not particularly brilliant defensively. He's given away stupid things and just didn't have the intensity I thought tonight. He just looked a little bit like he couldn't really be bothered, which maybe is a little bit harsh. Like I said, I don't want to pick him out above others because there was several in the team that kind of looked similar and looked along similar lines. But yeah, it's an opportunity. I think you see, the situation that he's in. We know what's going to happen with his contract in the summer, but I think if you're looking at it from his perspective, you'd want to kind of put in a few performances to kind of make people have that conversation again. I think that the fact that everyone at this point, with still so long to go in the season, has just accepted that, yeah, he's going to leave at the end of the season. No one's really that bothered. He's a record signing for a midfielder. He's an expensive player that Liverpool have brought in, but I don't think anyone really could disagree with the fact that it's the right decision to move him on. And performances like this have kind of been what he's put in the main. It's not the first time he's been hooked at half time. He's just not made enough of an impact. And I think when he's at his best, he can be very good, but he's just not been anywhere near consistent enough for a variety of reasons. And I think that the midfield there, Milner and Henderson as well, were not particularly brilliant. I thought Milner did okay. Henderson was better than Keita, but again, nothing spectacular. Just looked at certain times, when Henderson gets booked, he just couldn't keep pace with Michael Olise. He just couldn't get near him, ends up pulling him down outside the penalty area, and it's a stonewall yellow card. So yeah, all across the midfield, I think there's issues, and it just underlines it, doesn't it, really? We knew it already, but they're going to need to spend and get at least 2 midfielders in the summer, maybe 3. The problem is that the summer is a long time away. We're still in February. They've still got a number of games to go. Yeah, the frustration is that they've not done it sooner, but yeah, we knew that was the case. And a little bit like Liverpool as a whole, really, the midfield performance was no major shock. You're kind of hoping more than expecting that Naby Keita can put in a good performance, and unfortunately it just wasn't to be. And it was no surprise, like you say, that Harvey Elliott came on at half time. It was a no-brainer. It just had to happen, otherwise Naby Keita would have been sent off.
Yeah, another poor display, really. But as you say, he wasn't the only one at all. And we'll see what Jurgen Klopp can get out of his squad before that summer rebuild can begin. But that is all we're going to have time for on the debrief today. So, Matt, thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.